Yo, 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 what up, y'all? It's your boy Rob coming back at you once again with another live stream. So before we get started, you already know what to do. If you're not subscribed to the channel, make sure you hit the bell icon twice. Smash the like button, share this video out to all of your followers, and let's get it cracking, all right? So shout out to everybody who is in the room. If you guys can hear me okay, please give me a thumbs up or a radiation emoji in the chat. If you guys cannot hear me, please give me a thumbs down or an angry face, all right? While you guys are doing that, I'm going to shout out everybody who is in the building. Also, don't forget, Undocumented is also streaming on Twitter. Make sure that you guys follow the Twitter account. The bots will put it in the chat, or you can check the description box, and it is right there. So make sure that you guys do that, all right? Shout out to Brooklyn Queen. We got Lloyd Sky 9 in the building. We got Miss Nisi in the house. We got Ty Valentine in the building. We got DC Precise. We got Black Free Thinker. All right. And that's what's up. All right. So shout out to everybody who is here already. All right. So before we dive into the main bit of content, we're going to take care of a little bit of housekeeping first. We're going to look at what's been going on in the English channel briefly. We're going to look at some Texas issues and updates. We're going to look at what your boy Trump has been saying about immigration. And then we're going to dive into the Gotham City issues. All right. So the movement is global. All right. How many people heard about those migrants that ended up drowning in Texas? If you guys heard about that, give me a thumbs up. If you guys did not hear about that, give me a thumbs down. And yeah, absolutely. Happy MLK Day, B1 family. Big facts. Big facts. Biggest facts. You know what I'm saying? We're going to also talk about 5 dead migrants who also drowned, but they drowned across the pond in the English Channel. Now, do you guys remember from Undocumented Bros Global about the channel? When it comes to over the pond, quote unquote, the channel, for the most part, is similar to what we deal with on the Rio Grande. All right, so let's check this out.
5 migrants died yesterday after a small boat got into difficulties just off a French beach. So joining us now is our Home Security editor, Mark White, and the Daily Telegraph columnist, Madeline Grant. Good morning to you both. Madeline wants to talk to you as well about the Telegraph front page in just a moment. But Mark, let's talk about this yesterday. What happened? Who might be to blame for this?
It was criminal people smugglers who pushed these small boats out.
So now let me ask you guys a question. As immediately they said that it was criminal smugglers who pushed the small boats out. So this is my question for you guys. These criminal smugglers that are facilitating these criminal smugglers that are facilitating these channel crossings, do you all think that those smugglers are working with the cartels who are helping with the smuggling here in the United States? If you all think that they are, then give me a thumbs up. If you guys think that they are not, then give me a thumbs down.
Into the English Channel in less than ideal conditions. It was the first boats this weekend who crossed the English Channel successfully since the 16th of December, so pretty much a month, because of really bad weather conditions in the channel. The weather improved to the point where it was just about passable, and of course the people smugglers on the other side, well, you know, they care very little for those who are pushing out into the channel, except for the fact that, of course, deaths are bad for business in their eyes. But when the weather conditions are to the extent where they can make it, they push them out.
Why don't they just arrest them? They know who they are. They keep being told they know who they are. They advertise on TikTok, Mark. Their wares, these people smugglers. It's extraordinary.
Yeah.
So now, as you guys can see, they have the same problem across the pond as they have here in the United States. They know who these people are. These people are advertising that they're doing it. They're putting it on social media, and the respective governments are not doing anything about it. Okay?
Well, they have certain intelligence, but whether you can prove in a court of law the link between a certain individual and the orders that they're giving to others further down the chain is always very difficult. But on that point, I think it's a very interesting one, Andrew. We've got investigations that are happening all the time with our National Crime Agency and hundreds of their personnel involved in anti-people smuggling investigations in cooperation with our partners in Europe and elsewhere around the world. That doesn't get spoken about enough, I don't think, by our politicians. But I am noticing a subtle change in the language now.
So now let me ask you guys this question, all right? My question for you all is, if there's this ongoing migrant issue, and this migrant issue, as we have now seen, is going on globally, why aren't all the countries that are dealing with the migrant issue working together to stop the influx of migrants into their respective countries? Why do you think that that's not occurring? Let me know what you guys think.
That's coming from our political leadership here, where they're trying to take the ball off Rwanda as being the primary deterrent to stop small boats, and they're trying to emphasize that we're doing other things, such as going after the
Shout out to Carla. What's good?
Some will say about time, because Labour have been allowed to fill that particular vacuum by saying, what are they doing to go after the people smugglers? If we get into power, we're going to give lots more money to the National Crime Agency to do just that. Well, the National Crime Agency are already doing that. I'm sure they will welcome more money, but they are doing that at the moment.
All right, so there is that. All right. So what we're about to do now is there's a news clip that Fox put out, and it says, quote unquote, potential U.S. border migrant plan leaked to the public. All right. So my question for you guys is, before we even get started into this, what do you think that the migrant plan is? And when they talk about this migrant plan, I think this is the bipartisan plan that they plan on voting in Congress for spending. So what do you guys think is going to take place here? Okay. Yeah, and I got to agree with DC Precise. DC Precise says it's going as planned. Yeah, I agree. If you guys agree with DC Precise, give me a thumbs up. If you guys disagree with DC Precise, then give me a thumbs down. And shout out to everybody that's watching. I appreciate each and every one of you all. We got 15 people watching and we got 12 likes. If everybody could take a moment, smash that like button. Also, if you guys have not hit the bell and subscribed, hit the bell and subscribe. And also, please share the stream to your social media. Shout out to Crew Reality. What's good with it, bro? So now Biden's, according to this, he claims that he's going to make significant changes to the border. Now, if you ask me, the only reason why I believe that he's saying this is because his campaign is in shambles. He's trailing significantly in most polls when it comes to him and his major rival, Trump. And he has to say what he thinks that people want to hear. And if you ask me, it's very obvious what people want to hear, because nobody is really interested in continuing to sustain this border disaster that we're going through right now.
So anyway, that was President Biden. A little difficult to hear there, but basically what he was saying is what he was not saying in that soundbite. He was once again refusing to admit that the situation at the southern border is a crisis. However, he's now saying he's prepared to make major changes to the border. Meanwhile, Oklahoma Senator James Lankford is urging.
Now, I want to ask you guys, what would make Joe Biden change on his position at the border? And let's just get this out of the way. If Joe Biden is, quote unquote, willing to make changes from how things were being done to a different way, does that imply that the way things were being done before was incorrect? And as a result of the way that things were being done before, it's led to a lot of this disaster that we're seeing currently. Let me know what you guys think. And shout out to Shamika and shout out to Carlton.
Republicans to be patient, and he's trying to work out a border deal with Senate Democrats. He was hoping to announce an agreement in the coming days, but has backed off that timeline because talks remain difficult and complex. House Speaker Mike Johnson recently coming out against the deal, saying, quote, absolutely not, after details of that draft were leaked online. And we'll go through that. Let's bring in Georgia Congressman Richard McCormick. He's a member of the House Foreign Affairs.
Let's go back to this. All right. This is the deal that Schumer and Lankford put forward. They want to increase green cards by 50,000 per year. Work permits for adult children of H-1B holders. Immediate work permits to every illegal alien released from custody. taxpayer-funded lawyers to certain UACs and mentally incompetent aliens. Are you serious? 5,000 migrants per day allowed into the United States. Restricts parole for those who enter without authorization between ports of entry. Now, if you're in support of what is posted here on the screen, give me a thumbs up. If you're not in support of this and you think that this is a bad deal, then give me a thumbs down. Speaker Mike Johnson says absolutely not. Gotta agree. This this looks like no different than what we're dealing with now. This looks like a continued disaster with parameters.
McCormick. He's a member of the House Foreign Affairs and Armed Services Committees. Congressman, good morning to you. Here is these leaks, and this is where Johnson seems to be digging in his heels. $50,000 green cards, extra green cards a year. That's an increase. Immediate work permits to every illegal released from custody, which is like 85%. Taxpayer-funded lawyers. So that's what he's saying. Not so fast on.
Yeah, I'm not mad at that. I'm not mad at not saying not so fast on that. Mind you, these people have not voted, have not paid taxes a day in their lives, here in the United States at least. And I want you guys to pay very close attention. How long have we been voting? Is there anything that we've gotten that resembles anything close to this? This is what you get if you're not even a citizen. Show me where we've had anything in our existence in this country comparable to this right here.
But the whole premise is ludicrous. First of all, to say that you're going to issue visas to everybody who's released, you're talking about in the last 3 months an entire congressional district worth of people. Right now, it doesn't really matter because just in the last 3 months, you have that many people being funded on what they eat, how they're housed, their medicine, their education, anybody who has a baby. That's all taken care of already. That's out of your taxpayer dollars. And that's just in the last.
Again, we're going to look at this. This is the proposed bipartisan Senate border deal. All right. If you guys can see this, okay, then please give me a thumbs up. If you guys cannot see this, then give me a thumbs down. Shout out to Deformed Pretty Boy. What's good with it, bro? Increase green cards by 50,000 per year. Work permits for adult children of H-1B holders. Immediate work permits to every illegal alien released from custody. Taxpayer-funded lawyers to certain UACs and mentally incompetent aliens. Expulsion authority for a limited number of days, only if encounters exceed 5,000 per day over 7 days. Restrict parole for those who enter without authorization between points of entry. Now, here's my question. How would any of this get enforced? How would any of this get enforced is the question. We have policies in place now that are supposed to be being enforced, and they're not. How does this deal with the capacity issue? How does this deal with the lack of resource issue? How does this address any of the current issues that we have as far as it deals with dealing with the migrant crisis? How does this address anything? How does this improve anything? How does this change anything? How does this help anything? Somebody make it make sense.
Last 3 months, an entire congressional district. In the last 3 years, you had 13 congressional districts released into America, and that's what we're paying for. But you start talking about giving visas to all these people, lawyers to all these people, it just compounds the problem. It rewards the bad behavior that caused this to begin with. This isn't a real solution. This is actually part of the problem.
Yeah, well, and also too, you got to remember that there are things that have changed. But how about remain in Mexico? I mean, there are things that can be done, but it looks from first blush with these details that got leaked that the Democrats have no interest in securing the border. And this is as we're talking about impeaching Mayorkas.
Now, of course, it's not a solution. They don't want a solution. If they think that these people were coming here to vote for Republicans, then they'd all of a sudden have a solution. But they want to literally confound the way we vote. They want to give power to people who low-skilled workers who are going to be reliant on the government. That's going to make them lean to the left because they absolutely believe that the government is the solution to everyone's struggles. And they want a voter constituency here that will vote for people who believe in government rather than in individual accomplishments. And I'm not saying that you can't come from nothing to everything in the United States. That's what we're all about. But we have to know who's coming here. We have to know what rate. We have to set it appropriate to what we can support and on our terms, our legal terms. We already have laws. Obama was famous for quoting to say that we were a nation of laws, and that's why he kept our sovereign borders. That's why he deported people, that he followed the law. They're the same laws that exist today. All Biden has to do is actually support the laws that already exist. You don't have to make new ones. And we have.
Now, see, this guy said the exact same thing that I said. We already have laws in place. They're just not being enforced. If you guys agree, they already have laws and they're not enforcing them, then give me a thumbs up. If you guys disagree, then give me a thumbs down. There's laws already in place. Every issue that we're dealing with now, there is something in place to deal with it. The issue is that it's just not being enforced. And they're not talking about the lack of enforcement. Now look at Carol. She came in talking the right stuff today. You think we got through to Carol? If you guys think we got through to Carol, give me a thumbs up. If you don't think that we did, then give me a thumbs down. She said Benedict Biden.
HR2 on his desk anyway, if the Senate would ever get him and do their job. We don't need to compromise more. Just do the laws that we already have and we'd be fine.
Exactly. There are laws in the books. They're just not enforced. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer and House Speaker Johnson did reach an agreement on a short-term government funding bill. This would avert a partial government shutdown. Lawmakers releasing the text of the bill yesterday. It funds the government through March. Schumer says he's going to put the bill up for a vote tomorrow. Utah Senator Mike Lee threatened, though, a government shutdown over border security. He was on with Maria yesterday. I want you to watch this.
When are Senate Republicans going to get serious about the border?
Tell the Biden administration, if you want your administration funded, secure the border or shut it down. The very worst thing we can do right now is give them more money for their priorities.
Congressman?
First of all, realize that even Biden realized he's so deeply underwater on this issue. He wants to solve it too. He wants the border to at least appear like it's being secured. So he's going to come to some sort of.
I don't think that Biden wants to solve this issue. I think he does want it to appear that he's doing something about it, but I don't think that Biden legitimately wants to make this issue go away. If you guys think that Biden legitimately wants to make this issue go away, give me a thumbs up. If you guys think that Biden just wants to make it appear as if it's gone away, then give me a thumbs down. And honestly, I think that most of those sanctuary city mayors are the exact same way. And I've been saying that from the jump. Most of these people just want these situations to calm down and not be so loud. They don't want these situations to be a stain on their legacy. They want people to kind of be quiet about it. They don't really want these situations to go away. And one of the reasons why is because as long as they have these kind of situations going on in their city, it almost creates an infinite influx of availability to get unlimited government funds, which are never reinvested back into the taxpayers. They're never reinvested back into the actual city. And you guys already know FBA, ADOS, Freeman are not getting any of those funds either. So I don't think that any of these people actually have a legitimate desire to fix any of this. I think that these people have a legitimate desire to calm down some of the volatility, to calm down some of the negative press, and to continue receiving the influx of funds. That's what I think.
Compromise, whether it's with or without this continuing resolution. What I'm worried about is everything else, though. It doesn't make any difference in the overall budget. We're not tackling debt. We're not actually looking at reining in executive powers. The REINS Act is still off the table. I don't think it's good enough. Now, I understand the realities of having 3 special elections, having leaders to lease out, and now having another injury from Hal Rogers' auto accident. So we do have some really narrow margins that Mike Johnson is dealing with. So I understand there's realities to that. But right now, it's just not good enough.
Real quick before we go, I want to bring in Liz Peek. Liz Peek, go ahead.
Good morning, Congressman. Thanks for joining us. I really can't understand this deal at all. It seems to me it does absolutely nothing to stem the flow of people coming into the country illegally. And
I said the exact same thing as this woman said here. When you all looked at what was on the table for that deal, was there anything that directly addressed decreasing border encounters and decreasing border crossings? This is a very simple issue. What needs to occur is the amount of border crossings illegal and the amount of illegal border encounters need to decrease to as close to zero as they possibly manageably can. Once that occurs, a lot of this issue will start to dissolve. This lady right here, she said exactly that. And I'm in agreement. That's a great question to ask. And any plan that doesn't address those two things is a plan that's not meant to address the root cause of the issues. You know what I'm saying?
That's basically the issue here. So why would
Shout out to
Biden
Dre D. What's good with it, bro?
sacrifice all these spending priorities of his, including Ukraine funding, Israel funding, when he and also his own polling on this issue is catastrophic? Why doesn't he just do something, or why don't Democrats in the Senate do something to stop people?
Exactly, Ty. If you guys agree with Ty, give me a thumbs up. If you guys disagree, give me a thumbs down. Ty said Eric Adams never once said they have to go back or that they all have to leave. Not once. He said it's unsustainable. Facts. He wants it to be sustainable. They want sustainability for this. Yeah. Oh, shout out to Deformed Pretty Boy. Yeah, we talked about Medi-Cal, bro. We talked about Medi-Cal. They just opened up Medi-Cal availability for over 700,000 illegal migrants. All age ranges of migrants are now eligible for Medi-Cal. I don't know if you saw that one stream, but there's a stream on this channel called Free 99. Watch that stream. Anybody that's interested in what Deformed Pretty Boy is talking about, watch the stream called Free 99. You know what I'm saying?
Coming into the country. It is mind-boggling.
Well, looking at what the Senate's come up with as a quote-unquote compromise, it's not a compromise at all. It's given away. I hate it when we call compromises things where we're actually giving up ground. This is not a compromise at all.
Yep, you sure did. Appreciate you, bro.
States, what's overwhelmingly popular, which is to secure our border, remain in Mexico. All the things that are incorporated in HR2, which has already been passed by the House. Anything but that is not even a compromise. Because quite frankly, like you said, all Biden has to do is snap his fingers and go right back to what we did when we had Obama as president or Trump as president, when we actually secured our border. So don't tell me this is a compromise and pretend like you're doing something about it when our debt and the southern border are both going to hamstring the United States into the future.
See? So again, this is very consistent with what I've been saying. And I believe it's very consistent with what most of you all have been saying and how you guys feel as well. So Operation Lone Star. You guys recall Operation Lone Star? What Operation Lone Star has become? It has basically become a war between the United States federal government and the state government of Texas, which is not something that we need right now, but that's the current situation. That's the current situation. And real quick, speaking of the current situation, shout out to everybody that's watching. I appreciate each and every one of you all. We got 28 people watching and we got 15 likes. If everybody can smash that like button and get us to 30, that would be great.
All right, welcome back here to The Hill on News Nation. You are looking live right now, live shot Eagle Pass, Texas, where there is now a dramatic standoff between the state of Texas and the federal government. The Biden administration.
Why? Why is there a war between the federal government and the state government in Texas over protecting the border? This is absolutely insane. I don't like Greg Abbott. But this is so ludicrous. The Biden administration has you in a situation where you got to be like, Abbott's got a point. That's how bad the Biden administration is. Now, all these people, right? Because anytime I talk about this kind of stuff, you guys have seen, you get the trolls in the comment section. They're saying, oh, you know, you're a conservative. You're getting paid by MAGA. You're getting paid by Trump supporters. I'm not getting paid by anybody except for the people on my Patreon, AdSense, the people on my locals, people who send me cash apps, and the people who contribute to the channel through Google, super chats, or through memberships. That's who I get paid by. I don't have any kind of endorsements. I don't even have any type of products that I show other than the merch that we have for Reacts and Blacklight Revelations, right? This is my point. When shout out to Cyberdine. What's good with it, bro? B1. The point is, how can the Democrats be the party that are an optimal political party for black people when the Democrats are so upside down that the people who are cross burners with their general policies on everything except for race, black history, and reparations, they make more sense than the alleged party that is supposed to be for you? Does that, am I making sense? Does that make sense? If that makes sense, give me a thumbs up. If it doesn't, give me a thumbs down. That is the upside down, backwards, nonsensical, ineffective policies that the Democrats have been running. And then they have their paid trolls to come in. And when you point this stuff out, they want to sit there and say that you're trying to push conservative ideology. No, I'm trying to push common sense. Now, here's my question. In any of those quote unquote paid liberal shill trolls that come in, right, and are upset because of things that I say about Eric Adams, Brandon Johnson, J.B. Pritzker, Joe Biden, why do the rebuttals never come with alternative solutions? We should vote Democrat. We should vote for Biden. What is Biden going to do about the border? Let me ask you guys a question. If we go off of the past track record of how Biden has dealt with the border, if Biden gets another 4 years in office, how is he going to deal with the border? Is the way that he's dealt with it currently an indication of how he'll deal with it in the future? Let me know in the comment section.
Administration has now turned to the Supreme Court after Texas Governor Greg Abbott ordered the National Guard there and state troopers in his state to block U.S. Border Patrol agents from a stretch of the Rio Grande in Eagle Pass. In a filing, the Justice Department claims that the move, quote, demonstrates an escalation of the state's measures to block the Border Patrol's ability to patrol or even surveil the border. All right, the basic thinking here.
Okay, here's another question. Are tax dollars being wasted here? Like, why is this going on? We literally have a state government in a standoff with the federal government. Why is that happening? When is the last time that the United States has done something that it has full support of its taxpayers of? When is the last time that that's occurred? Let me know what you guys think. When was the last time that happened?
Here is that the federal government, Lauren Nan, isn't doing enough at the border. So Texas, we're going to take this into our own hands. You got a problem with it?
It's not going to go anywhere good, but it should not have happened in the first place. And the reason it's happening is because the Biden administration has been extremely confusing, inconsistent on the immigration issue. They have simultaneously fought to keep some Trump policies in court, more deportations, for instance, while also blaming Republicans and then saying they want publicly funded programs for migrants.
But isn't this
no one can make heads or tails of it.
Isn't this a wild concept, though, of federal government, you step aside, states,
Yes,
we got
it
this? I mean,
is.
immigration is a federal issue, is it not?
But it's a public safety issue in the state of Texas.
Okay, it's not really that hard to understand, like what this news anchor is saying, because clearly the federal government has not been doing their job. So if the federal government is not doing their job and the state has the means, the abilities, and the resources to be able to step in and say, you know what, if you guys are not going to handle your responsibility, we're going to handle it because our residents are our primary responsibility. That's pretty normal and pretty reasonable to expect, right? If you guys feel that that's pretty normal and pretty reasonable, then give me a thumbs up. If it's not, if that's unreasonable, if that's not how this should be done, then give me a thumbs down and let me know what you guys think.
It is an unusual burden on the citizens of Texas, both in terms of expenditures on social welfare benefits for whatever time or duration these migrants who are present illegally remain in the country, and also in terms of public safety. So I think that's the state of Texas's argument. Your federal government is putting us at risk.
So what about what they're saying, right? Biden administration essentially has failed at the southern border.
This is an institutional failure. Democrats certainly haven't helped, but Republicans haven't come to the table to actually have a real deal on immigration. Last time we came together, Republicans backed out on a deal. Now we're seeing the consequences of this.
But
Democrats and Republicans have to come together and do this. Democrats need it for Democrats politically need this. We need this off the table coming into the election.
But why do you think it's happening in the first place? You don't think there's any?
See, so there you go. I don't know who this guy is. We can only assume based on appearances, right? But he said Democrats need this off the table coming into the election, which means that the goal of this is not a sustainable solution. The goal of this is an appearance of effort in order to win favor with voters, which the Democrats are already far fallen out of favor with voters. But that's what this is for. This is an effort to win voters. Okay. And real quick, shout out to everybody that's watching. We got 29 people watching and we got 22 likes. If everybody can bang that like button and get us to 40, that'd be great.
Anything to do with the poll factors that started on the 2020 Democratic campaign trail?
No, I think
immigration has been going on for 2 decades. We've been having the same conversation about immigration now forever. And the one time we came close to a deal, the McCain-Kennedy bill, Republicans were the ones who tanked it because the right went absolutely nuts over the word, quote, amnesty. That bill never happened. No compromise ever happened. I mean, we came from a place as a party, as a former Republican, where we once talked about compassionate conservatism. That's what George W. Bush preached. He was someone who wanted an immigration bill to be the centerpiece of his administration's accomplishments, and it ended up not really happening because of Republicans. Reagan granted the 86 Simpson Mazzoli amnesty bill in the first place.
But when negotiations break down, both sides can be blamed for the breakdown.
Sure, but just don't say that.
But right now it's a Democrat administration, and Trump did have certain policies like remain in Mexico.
I thought Mexico was building us a wall to fix all this, and they were going to pay for it. They were going to pay for it. Where's the check?
That is a digression. Trump actually did build some wall. It wasn't enough.
Mexico's supposed to pay for it. He said it over and over and over again.
This is the best snapshot of this to me.
Exactly.
Trump had a horrible child separation policy. Laura Bush wrote an op-ed. Ivanka said it was the most embarrassing, lowest one of the administration. Biden's approval rating is the same as when Trump rolled that out and everyone was absolutely furious with him. That is how upset people are at the Biden administration about it.
Let me wrap this up this way. This is the debate.
This is it.
Right? And this is why, in part, I think it's gotten to where it is in Texas. All right, speaking of Texas, have you seen this? The movement for Texas independence suffered a major blow. The state Supreme Court declining to hear a challenge to the Texas Republican Party's refusal to include the, quote, Texit petition on the March primary ballot. The group Texas National Movement has been.
So Texas is trying to withdraw from the United States again. They've been on this for a while now. Now, I think that people should actually have an open discussion about this. How do people feel about certain states removing themselves from the United States? I honestly think that it's going to get to that point.
Been pushing to make Texas an independent nation, Nan.
Yeah,
You're already you're laughing.
It is the republic. It is the republic. But once you sign in, once you sign up to be part of the United States, you're locked in. But I want to just mention one thing apropos of Texas. The Flores consent decree was what the Trump administration finally decided to enforce, and that was why children were separated because of the Flores consent decree, which was actually an Obama administration policy. But that irrespective of that, Texas cannot just decide itself.
Let's get that federal money back then if Texas wants to. Let's see how that goes.
There you go. Yeah, that's got 97,000 signatures. There's 30 million people there.
All right, if the Cowboys win the Super Bowl, they can become their own state.
Yes, right.
All right. What were we saying? 30 million people and 97,000
signatures. Not enough. Not enough.
From Texas to Iowa, and my goodness. Thank you for watching.
All right, so there's that. All right. So yeah, you got that standoff going on. And now also, you know, what they're doing is they're trying to blame Governor Abbott for those migrant deaths that occurred, because if I'm not mistaken, I think 3 migrants who might have been minors drowned. Okay. So now next, what we're going to talk about is what Trump is promising as far as immigration. Now, here's my thing, right? When it comes to what Trump is saying, do you all think that he's going to follow through on it? Absolutely not. I don't think he is. I think that what Trump is going to do is what the donors pay him to do. And most of these donors are not going to pay him to do mass deportations. Most of the donors are going to pay him to make it sound like he's making an effort in order to distract people from what's actually not getting done and continue to do business as usual. But let's see what he's talking about. Trump vows to enact the largest deportation effort as migrants housed in New York City schools. Now, here's my question. If Trump wins the election, he needs to be held accountable for this. Because if he wins the election, I'm sure this is one of the reasons why people would be voting for him. Would you guys agree? If you guys agree, give me a thumbs up. If you guys disagree, give me a thumbs down. Now, my question is, with this promise that Trump is putting out, how do you hold him accountable? What I need you guys to do is I need you guys to list all of the things that you think would be effective ways to hold Trump accountable to what he's saying here. Because the ultimate way to hold him accountable is if he stops getting the support of people who supported him. However, there needs to be something in place in order to gain that support. Something's got to happen now. He's got to make something happen now. Shout out to Deformed Pretty Boy. He says, you know how many illegals work for his hotels? Yeah, facts. All you got to do is go down to Miami and go on Collins Avenue. I think that there's 2 Trump Tower hotel buildings down there. Just go in there and check out the housekeeping department. That's all you got to do. You know what I'm saying? Now, it's not on the border, right? But Miami is a port city. So, you know what I'm saying?
We have millions and millions of people here. It is not sustainable.
Now, shout out to Deformed Pretty Boy. Deformed Pretty Boy says Vegas too. I'm sure in Vegas there is. I just never been to Vegas. I seen Collins Avenue with my own eyes. You know what I'm saying? I never been to Vegas. You know what I'm saying? Never been there. I believe you. But I seen, you know what I'm saying, Collins Avenue with my own eyes.
Did you see in New York City where they're getting the regular students out and they're putting migrants in their place? We are going to have the largest deportation effort in the history of our country. We're bringing everybody back to where they came from. We have
now. Pay very close attention. What do you guys notice about that audience there? What do you notice about that audience? There's something that should just jump right out at you, that those people in that audience probably don't want anybody mentioning. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, facts. If you guys agree with Miss Nisi, give me a thumbs up. If y'all disagree, give me a thumbs down. All PC. Now, mind you, of course, if you ask one of them, they're not going to say anything because in their minds, this is exactly how it's supposed to look. These are exactly the people that should be talked to. These are the people that should be making all the rules. That's what they believe. This is something that we got to be aware of. Something that we got to deal with. Something that we got to break up so that we can actually get some stuff done. Because as long as political meetings look like this, these people are automatically going to try to work to lock out and block out anything that could possibly improve our situation, because the way that they look at it is that the improvement of our situation is an automatic indicator of a deterioration of their situation. Which means that we got to be on the offensive at all times. what I'm saying?
No choice. We have no choice.
Now, we're gonna get into New York City. We're gonna get into New York City, but pay very close attention to the text that they keep putting up on the screen. We've already talked about the school issue, right? If you guys are not aware of the public school issue going on in New York City, watch the live stream called No More Teachers, No More Books. That's the one where we talk about the New York school, Madison High School, and the migrants being moved into there and the students being moved out. There's also some other issues going on in New York.
Have a look at what's happening in New York, where kids at a New York school are being told, stay home from school, just virtually learn in your own home. You can't come to your classroom because, well...
So now the first hit that I want you guys to pay very close attention to this. The first hit that students have taken was because of C-19. Now students potentially could be taking another hit as a result of the migrant crisis. Make it make sense.
Legal immigrants are now staying in your classroom. The immigrants were staying at a tent city, but because of a storm, they were put on school buses. 2,000 illegal immigrants bussed to the James Madison High School and put in classrooms, while kids, well, as I said, they're learning from home. A local councilwoman is not impressed.
Our schools are not migrant or homeless shelters. They're places of learning for our children, paid for by our taxpayer dollars. Our children, our school community, our families should not have to bear the brunt of a migrant crisis.
US-Mexico border crossings reached a record monthly high in December 2023. More than 220,000 migrants were found along the border by authorities, making it the highest monthly record.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I agree 100%, Ty. Ty says they wanted to come here. Let them experience real New York weather. Keep them in the tents. Stop coddling grown-ass adults. I agree. If you guys agree with Ty, give me a thumbs up. If y'all disagree, then give me a thumbs down. Deformed Pretty Boy says they on that blade in New York hard. They're not nationally talking about that. I mean, really, you come here to sell pee. You're trash. Big facts. Big facts. Biggest facts.
Recorded total since 2000.
The bulk of illegal crossing activity in this community happens in this spot where the international crossing bridges are between Eagle Pass, Texas and Piedras Negras, Mexico. But further north of here, a new hotspot has emerged. Fox cameras capturing this video of about 100 migrants being taken into custody near an exclusive neighborhood with high-end homes in the north part of the city. The area also butts right up against part of the Rio Grande River and has become another area where activity's picking up. We also caught up on Friday with Democratic Congressman Don Davis of North Carolina, who made the trip here to Eagle Pass to see this crisis for himself, as the talks between lawmakers and the White House continue over that supplemental spending agreement where President Biden has requested $14 billion for additional border funding. Congressman Davis says they must act fast as this ongoing crisis is
now with Biden requesting $14 billion for the ongoing border crisis. My question is, how much of that $14 billion is Biden going to actually put into the border? How much of that money is actually going to get spent on the border? Let me know. Give me a figure.
not sustainable.
One of the takeaways
there we go.
from that visit.
Y'all know what to do. What they just say. It's not sustainable. So now here's my question. And I want everybody to critically think, and I want everybody to use their calculation skills. This time next year, where will we be with this? Where will this be? Where will we be at with this particular situation at this time next year? Does it matter who's president?
ongoing crisis is not sustainable.
One of the takeaways from that visit is just listening to the enormous volume of resources that they're having to commit locally from the community to deal with the situations taking place here at the border in their community.
Meantime, Border Patrol agents in El Paso this past week arresting a man from El Salvador who had been convicted of murder.
Look at that. Look at that. How many stories like this have we heard? So this tweet right here says, yesterday, U.S. BP agents in El Paso, Texas, arrested an undocumented subject from El Salvador who was previously convicted for murder. So far in fiscal year 24, since October 1st, U.S. Border Patrol has arrested 10 subjects with homicide and murder convictions. Now, is anybody shocked?
And another who had been found guilty in a 2015 homicide from Colombia.
So here's another one. Look at the tats. U.S. BP agents in El Paso, Texas, apprehended a migrant convicted of homicide in 2015 in Colombia. This dangerous criminal will be prosecuted for illegal entry and removed from the country, thanks to the agents for their exceptional work. Now, here's my question. If these people are coming over here undocumented, does it make it more difficult to figure out if they have a history like this or not? Is this something easy to figure out about these people?
The chief of U.S. Border Patrol says since October 1st, 10 different migrants with murder convictions have been found in this country and arrested, highlighting the importance of Border Patrol agents to be out in the field actually patrolling and not bogged down necessarily with processing and paperwork, which is oftentimes required with mass migrant surges.
All right, so there's that. Okay.
We have.
Hold on. So there's that. All right. So now, next, what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at your boy, Brandon Johnson. Your boy, Brandon Johnson. He decided to sit down and have a one-on-one interview. How many people saw this one-on-one interview that Brandon Johnson had? Shout out to my man, Wallow J. What's good with it? Anybody see this one-on-one interview that Brandon Johnson had? Now, shout out to TD Hip Hop Media, because TD Hip Hop Media went over a couple snippets of it briefly in his last live stream. Now, I'm going to tell you guys something about Brandon Johnson that you probably already know. He is not the brightest human being walking the earth. He's not. He's not the brightest. Facts. Shout out to Ty Valentine. Ty Valentine says, this time next year, we're going to have a voice that comes from the sky that says, finish them. The migrants win.
With some of the worst winter weather we've seen in a while, only hours away, more than 500 migrants are still waiting for shelter space in Chicago. 239 migrants are staying in warming buses at the city's landing zone, and 3 more charter buses from Texas expected to arrive in the city today.
Shout out to you, Law. What's
That's
good
just
with it,
one
bro?
of the topics we pressed Mayor Brandon Johnson on during a one-on-one interview today.
Now, I think that people should start calculating how much damage Brandon Johnson being mayor has caused to black people in Chicago. And there need to be some solid figures, and people need to come to the table with that. Oh, yeah, we know what you're talking about. Shout out to Carlton Way. Carlton said, I blame Brandon Johnson's black wife. TD knows what I'm talking about. Yeah, that part of what Brandon Johnson said might actually be in the interview. That might actually be in the interview. This is just more evidence of Brandon Johnson just not being a coherent individual. He's just not coherent. You know what I'm saying? The guy is not qualified to be the mayor. They really, really, really need to make sure there's no remnants of him in the office next time they get the opportunity to vote for a mayor. Honestly, what people need to be doing right now is looking for viable candidates and shopping them around with the issues that they have right now. Would you guys agree? If you guys agree, give me a thumbs up. If you guys disagree, give me a thumbs down.
Sabrina Franza sat down with the mayor. Sabrina, this is a rare opportunity to get answers to so many questions about what's happening in the city.
Erica, it wasn't nothing was off the table in this conversation. The goal, to learn about how the Johnson administration plans to govern the city in the middle of a migrant crisis while delivering on their campaign promises. Want to talk about this year? New year, same mayor, new budget, right? But same mission. You talked a lot about treatment, not trauma in your campaign, and you're inching closer and closer to getting that done. When do you expect crisis responders to be on 911 calls?
So it's not just about reopening 2 mental health clinics that were closed, but it's also about providing care, because 40% of the 911 calls that were coming through really required a mental health care response.
But do we know which neighborhoods or
What? So now, as you guys can see how he's talking about the mental health, you guys recall what was in that suggested bill proposal for mental health, right? So just remember that, okay?
As I said, whether it's Austin, whether it's Roseland, whether it's North Lawndale, Garfield Park, pick a side of the city of Chicago on the west or south side, or pick a neighborhood.
We've been on the street in those communities as well. And when we talk to voters, a lot of times they'll voice concerns about being frustrated that they don't think your administration is hearing them because of the monies that are being spent on the migrant crisis that they are not seeing. It seems like this money just appears out of thin air, but isn't being invested in their own communities.
Now, that question that she just asked, I want to know what you guys think before Brandon Johnson answers that question. What she basically said is that Brandon Johnson's constituents are requesting money, right? They're requesting reinvestment from their tax dollars, reinvestment from their votes. They're not seeing that reinvestment, but then money just appears out of the sky to fund initiatives for the migrant crisis. If that's a valid question and that's actually what's going on in Chicago, give me a thumbs up in the comment section. If that's not a valid question, if that's not true, somehow she got it wrong, then give me a thumbs down. Okay? And real quick, shout out to everybody that's watching. We got 35 people watching and we got 32 likes. If everybody can bang on that like button and get us to 50, that'd be great.
That are being spent on the migrant crisis that they are not seeing. It seems like this money just appears out of thin air, but isn't being invested in their own communities. Why do you think they feel that way?
Well, because again, Black and brown neighborhoods, and particularly Black communities, have been disinvested in. Keep
Black and brown, Black and brown, Black and brown. Now, let me ask you guys a question. What people need to start doing is what, if you ask me, is that people need to start creating a matching consequence for a matching offense. If going forward, the political movement is no Black and brown coalition, then anytime these Democrat politicians try to push this message, there needs to be a consequence for them. So my question to you all in the comment section is, what should the consequence be when these people do this? Because my question is, and we're going to be watching, we're going to be looking, how many of these Latino, how many of these Asian, because Latinos and Asian both have brown sectors, right? How many of these quote unquote brown politicians advocate for Black people? Vivek Ramaswamy ain't advocating for Black people except for the, maybe build some plantations back up that he's never had any experience with because, he's, as much as he wants to be one of them, he's not. We heard what Nuri Martinez felt as far as Black people go. We've also heard what AOC feels about Black people. AOC doesn't even believe that we're real. She thinks that we're like, leprechauns and Bigfoot. You know what I'm saying? So what needs to happen is that there needs to be a matching consequence per offense. And then everybody who's in the same school of thought needs to move on that consequence immediately when the offense occurs. If you guys agree, give me a thumbs up. If you guys disagree, give me a thumbs down.
Why do you think they feel that way?
Well, because again, Black and brown neighborhoods, and particularly Black communities, have been disinvested in. Keep in mind that the migrant crisis, this international global crisis, really requires a federal resource response.
What if the federal government doesn't help you?
Well, clearly they haven't thus far.
But is that sustainable? Because you've said it isn't sustainable.
Well, I think you've answered it. No, it's not sustainable.
Y'all know what to do. Now, how many people have we heard say that this is not sustainable? This is something new, right? We've been saying that this is unsustainable forever. This is something new with these politicians coming out and admitting it now. So, you know, this is all this is just I told you so. And shout out to everybody, just so everybody knows, we're only 49 subscribers away from 500. So if you haven't smashed that like button yet, if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, do both and help us get to 500. If you guys haven't shared the stream to Twitter or haven't shared it to Facebook, do that and help us get to 500.
Because you've said it isn't sustainable.
Well, I think you've answered it. No, it's not sustainable. The Congress does have to act. And if they do not act, this is going to continue to cause the type of chaos that the governor of Texas wants to do.
But we're running out of space. So where are these people going to go?
27 shelters, what I've built.
And they're all full.
And we have provided education, health care for these families. And we did all of that without having to cut back on services to people, as I've already expressed, that have been set at the margins for generations.
So
that's not true. He's babbling. He said that they haven't cut back on any services for Chicago residents. They literally were trying to take away a community center from that black neighborhood in Chicago, which is cutting back. It was currently in use when they were trying to do that. So I want you guys to pay very close attention. These Democrats, they lied to you right in your face.
Health care for these families. And we did all of that without having to cut back on services to people, as I've already expressed, that have been set at the margins for generations.
So we've asked all these questions and we've talked to people on your city council, people on the street. They're frustrated with the lack of transparency from your administration. They say shelters are opening up in my ward and I don't know they're opening until they're open. Why do you feel like those who you're working with collaboratively and those who have voted for you feel you are not being transparent?
If people believe—
So this is an ongoing issue, right? Do you guys recall in TD Hip Hop Media's live stream where TD was calling Brandon Johnson a dictator and saying that Brandon Johnson is not not about democracy? This is proof right here. They're on their local news station and the local news anchor is questioning Brandon Johnson about his transparency and involving the other people in city council. Shout out to Black Free Thinker. What's good with it? And facts, all politicians lie. All politicians lie. But remember, we got to vote Democrat, according to Charlemagne. Right, and I got his TD Media Group now. Facts. He big time now. Got to remember that. He big time.
believe that there's more information that's available, then they're looking for nothing, because I've been absolutely clear about this mission.
Much more coming up with Mayor Brandon Johnson at 6. We talk more about transparency, supporting asylum seekers, and the Chicago Bears. In the newsroom, Sabrina Franza, CBS 2 News.
So I guess we'll probably skip the Chicago Bears one, except for the fact that your boy Brandon Johnson is sweeter than bear meat. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. I don't think they're talking about a Chicago Bear though. But now we're going to talk about AOC a little bit. How many people heard about what AOC had to say about the migrants? If you guys heard what AOC recently said about the migrant crisis when she was confronted, give me a thumbs up. If you guys did not hear what AOC said, then give me a thumbs down. Shout out to Sybil. What's good with it? Just so we're all clear, just like Brandon Johnson, AOC is not the brightest. She's not the brightest. You know what I'm saying? She's not the brightest. So here's what she did.
Meanwhile, Chicago has now spent $156 million on migrant housing and care. Meanwhile, nearly 17% of Windy City residents, they live in poverty. Over 6,000.
So again, this immediately in the first 11 seconds, this Fox News clip, if these numbers that they're providing are accurate, this has immediately debunked what Brandon Johnson was saying. And the reason why this has immediately debunked what Brandon Johnson is saying is because every dollar spent of taxpayer money that's being spent on the migrant crisis is a dollar not being reinvested into a taxpayer. Which means that that entire amount that they just listed are resources that did not go to taxpayers.
Meanwhile, Chicago has now spent $156 million on migrant housing and care. Meanwhile, nearly 17% of Windy City residents, they live in poverty. Over 6,000 are homeless. 25% of Cook County students are at or below reading level 1. It's not much better for New York City students, an entire high school forced to learn remotely on Wednesday as thousands of migrants occupied the building. Here's our very own Hillary Vaughn confronting Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez about it.
Are you okay with the school being used as a shelter? You know, I think it's, again, this is not, it's not in my district. I think it's very clear here that.
It's not in her district. It's in your country. It's in your state. It's not in her district. So if Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is not upset about the migrant crisis going on in her district, why does she care about abortion policies in other states? She should only care about abortion policies in her district. Would you guys agree? If you guys agree with that, give me a thumbs up. If you guys disagree with that, give me a thumbs down. You know what? I am not sure, Wallow J. That's a great question. Does anybody know? Do you guys know what the demographics of those kids who were displaced from that school were? I'm not sure. Let me know. If y'all know, let me know.
Tez about it.
Are you okay with the school being used as a shelter? You know, I think it's, again, this is not, it's not in my district. I think it's very clear here that what's most important is that.
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is answering this question like a flake. And the reason why she's answering this question like a flake is because she is a flake. She's a flake. That's some old school disrespectful terminology to address a woman as a flake. How many of y'all ever heard of that? You ever heard your parents or your grandparents say, that's a flake right there? That's what Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is. She is a textbook stereotypical flake. And that was a flake answer right there. You know what I'm saying?
Are you okay with the school being used as a shelter? You know, I think it's, again, this is not, it's not in my district. I think it's very clear here that what's most important is that we identify a facility that's appropriate for these folks. I don't anticipate this being a long-term solution. It shouldn't be a long-term solution.
Here now, Kennedy Saves the World podcast host. Kennedy, not my district.
What a non-answer.
Welcome to our district.
Yeah, it's not my district, you guys, so I don't really have to worry about anything. It's her policies, and that's the problem, is people like AOC aren't taking ownership of their philosophy, which is bankrupting cities across the country. And people in New York, people in Chicago never really had to think about the immigration crisis because to them it was theoretical. Well, now it's actual. And, you know, you've got 17% living in poverty in Chicago. It's about 14%, a little less in New York. And
now here's my question. Why are these people in Chicago that are living in poverty, why are those issues not being addressed, but the migrant issues are being prioritized first? What are you guys' thoughts on that?
in LA, it's almost 14%, but it's so bad in Chicago. And at some point, there is a finite amount of resources, no matter what people like AOC and Bernie think. They think you can tax the rich out of any problem. But
listen, do you guys hear these swagger jackers? Nobody was saying this before. We got a finite amount of resources. Man, nobody was using those algebra terms. If you're going to swagger jack, man, at least give credit. That's all I'm saying. Okay, so shout out to Wallow J. Wallow J got the demographics for the school. 47.3% white, 20.9% Asian, 17.9% Hispanic for that school. Facts. And you can tell that it was like that, and that's why they're covering it the way that it was, because if it was a black school, they would be covering it saying those kids didn't need to be in school anyway because all they're going to do is fail and get out and be criminals, and the hardworking migrants should be able to utilize those schools because the black students ain't going to use it. And they would be saying that stuff right here on this very same station, and it would be these very same people who are acting like they're so outraged who would be saying that about the schools, because that's just what they do. These people ain't shit. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to Torian Rain. What's good with it, bro?
Chicago. And at some point, there is a finite amount of resources. No matter what people like AOC and Bernie think, they think you can tax the rich out of any problem, but they're creating more problems. They're creating more dependency and incentivizing this lawless immigration that they have completely lost control of.
So meanwhile, go ahead.
Sorry, she just says it shouldn't be a long-term solution, but she has no solution.
No, there is no long-term solution. There's no short-term solution. There's no border solution. There is no immigration solution. And you could take all of those things apart. They can all be seen as separate problems. Yeah. Obviously, Congress isn't going to make an entire move with a comprehensive immigration package. But even if you take it apart, she has no solutions for any of that. And neither does the vice president, who is the border czarina.
No solutions, because remember, it's not her.
It's not my district.
Not my problem.
Now, talk about things that are sort of short-term fixes. Governor Abbott down in Texas is using the National Guard to secure a park near the border, saying, Border Patrol, move out, do something else. We've got this. Not an ideal solution, but it's a vacuum of power down there, basically. And he's saying, let me step in and do something. Interestingly, the federal government keeps challenging him. So we're going to sue you for doing this. And I don't know, maybe they have a legal case, but from the case of public perspective, Abbott looks like the one who's trying to do something here.
I mean, don't you wish that some of our leaders at the federal level felt that same sort of urgency? I really do, because people look at that, and at least Abbott is doing something. You may disagree with him on a lot of his policies, but here, someone has to look out for the places that are completely inundated, because there is nothing. There's been no policy shift to disincentivize people from coming up through the southern border and the northern border. Those Canadians, no one talks about it. And by the way, here's another thing that doesn't get a lot of play. So we heard that a bunch of U.S. air marshals were being sent to the southern border, basically to do light housekeeping and some office work. So who's guarding the planes?
Right. Great.
Good question.
Not to.
What kind of light housekeeping? Why would they send U.S. air marshals to the southern border to sweep the floor? If that makes sense, give me a thumbs up. If it don't make any sense, then give me a thumbs down. Why would they do that? Why would they spend money on that? Somebody make that make sense. That makes absolutely no sense.
Shift from this, because this is great, but Hunter Biden interview with Joe Biden. She's making him out to be a victim. Watch and react.
How have you been coping personally with the onslaught of accusations against your husband and your...
We'll talk about Hunter Biden some other time. All right. So Mayor Eric Adams has said that, quote unquote, we're full. Now, when Mayor Eric Adams says, quote unquote, we're full, what does that translate to? That translates to we're at capacity. We can't take anybody else in. Now, what's interesting about this is that the New York Post, the New York Times, and all of these mainstream media outlets, the Atlantic, they've taken Eric Adams simply reciting a mathematical reality and have said that this is, quote unquote, anti-immigrant. Now, I'm going to ask you guys, is that anti-immigrant or is it not? Let me know what you guys think. We got an article, we got a video from The Hill that we're going to check out. and see exactly what we got going on. And real quick, shout out to everybody that's watching. I appreciate each and every one of you guys. We got 40 people watching, and we got 40 likes. If everybody can smash on that like button and get us to 60, that'd be great.
Mayors of 3 of the country's biggest cities now say their areas are almost at capacity for handling the surge of migrants currently pouring over the U.S.-Mexico border.
They're almost at capacity. Now, remember, these are cities that fought very hard, right? These people fought extremely hard to be sanctuary cities. And now they don't want to be sanctuary cities.
The mayors of New York City, Denver, and Chicago have all pleaded with federal authorities for assistance as the border sees a record number of crossings. Just yesterday, Mexico and the Biden administration formally agreed to work together to keep the border open for asylum seekers while curbing illegal migration.
New York City Mayor Eric Adams.
Shout out to Black Spider. Do you guys see this? Black Spider said, saw that video, city of Chicago, them immigrants calling out black people, shouting at them, you're lazy, no more money for you. That's what we got coming into the United States. Now, you know, the dominant society, they cheer that on. But that's something that we got to deal with. Those people are already dog whistling for a job. And it's not to be a housekeeper at a hotel coming in, popping hot mess like that. You know what I'm saying?
Shared this video to address constituents on the matter just yesterday. Let's watch.
We're seeing the erosion of the quality of life that we've improved on in such a short period of time of this administration. And we have been impacted. For many months, we were able to keep the visualization of this crisis from hitting our streets, but we have reached a breaking point. We're no longer able to do that because of the volume in numbers. Just last week, we had 3,900 people that arrived here. We are averaging anywhere from 2,500 to close to 4,000 a week. And if you do the math, you see that's 8,000 every 2 weeks, potentially 16,000 a month.
Did he say do the math? Did he say do the math? Anybody that's been talking about this, I only know of one person who's actually calculated numbers and crunched numbers in real time. They should have been doing the math on this situation the entire time. If they had been doing this math on this situation the entire time, then they may possibly be more in tune with reality than being in the delusional state that they're in right now.
That we must feed, clothe, house, educate children, and all the services that you would give a normal adult. And we're seeing that play out on our streets of New York. And that is what the breaking point looks like, what we are experiencing right now.
The Biden administration, meanwhile, warned Texas that it will sue the.
And now, see, this is what I'm talking about right here. Shout out to my man, Lloyd Scott 9. Lloyd Scott 9 says Blacklight was. Facts. I absolutely was. We had the calculator right up on the screen, and we were calculating numbers. We were calculating things going out as far as 365 days. 730 days. Calculating amounts of money. Now, what's important about that? What's important about that is that this is what I'm saying. We've been calculating, and since we've been calculating, we were far ahead of this, saying that this is completely unsustainable. Not just saying that it's unsustainable, but here's why. Certain accelerations, certain numbers. We isolated variables that they need to focus on in order to stop this or to get it to calm down. That right there is one of the reasons why I tell everybody it is imperative. It is imperative. It is imperative. I cannot say it enough for us to calculate our own data. Our data is the best quality data. And it always needs to be calculated and compared against everybody else. And I guarantee you that as long as we calculate our own data factually, accurately, keep it updated and check it, our data will always be superior to everyone else's. And with superior data, you have superior insights. And with superior insights, you make superior decisions. And with superior decisions come superior outcomes. If you guys agree, give me a thumbs up. If you guys disagree, give me a thumbs down.
State if it implements a strict immigration law that would empower state and local law enforcement to arrest, jail, and prosecute migrants suspected of crossing illegally. So Mayor Eric Adams just had this executive order passed to essentially tell the state of Texas, you have to give us 32 hours notice, and you can't have buses of migrants coming into the state, any hours outside of 8 a.m. and 12 noon so that, they can process them. Seems like a reasonable executive order, seems like good cooperation between states. But all in all, this isn't an issue that can be resolved by the governor of any particular state, by any mayors, by law enforcement. This is something that needs to be resolved by Congress, because I see migration wholly as an economic consideration. There needs to be the proper, policies in place and systems in place to process people coming into the United States legally who want to work here. And there really isn't one. When I see the influx of migrants into
You shouldn't just be able to come to the United States for a job. Listen, man, I used to work for a company that had branches in other countries, and you couldn't just go there and get a job. If these people want to, quote unquote, come to the United States to get a job, they should have to come utilizing the legal framework. You don't get to just break the law to get here because you're thirsty for a job. That's not how that works. But it's what the United States has been allowing. And since the United States has been allowing, the United States has been incompetent and purposely sabotaging itself and not maintaining its borders, not enforcing its laws, because it has chosen to do this. The fact that the United States chose to do this has now been seen not only as weakness, but as an invitation for everyone to come. If the United States was enforcing laws, do you all think that there would be as many people attempting to get into the southern border as there are now? The reason why there's as many people that are trying to get in now as there are is because they know that there's not going to be any consequence. They're going to be completely unscathed. They're not going to be touched. And they're going to get protection once they get inside the United States. Who wouldn't come here?
New York City, and New York officials saying, we have to pay for 19,300 plane tickets for migrants seeking to go across the country. Are we sure that there is a job for them there?
Did you guys hear that? They're paying for 19,300 plane tickets for migrants from from New York to go wherever they want to go in the country. Is that optimal policy? Is that good decision making? Does that make sense? If that makes sense, give me a thumbs up. If that does not make sense, then give me a thumbs down.
Policies in place and systems in place to process people coming into the United States legally who want to work here. And there really isn't one. When I see the influx of migrants into New York City and New York officials saying, we have to pay for 19,300 plane tickets for migrants seeking to go across the country, are we sure that there is a job for them there? Are we sure that there is a pathway for them to live a sustainable life? Or are they going to be sucked into what I think many conservatives fear, and which is a legitimate fear, the informal economy, and seeking to meet their most basic needs through committing crimes and doing all kinds of work on the streets of the United States? We can have full employment in the United States.
That's already happening right now. We're literally already, what she's describing right now, we're literally already seeing that. So we're not looking into the future at a future time lapse. We're literally actually looking at a current reality. Like, this is the current situation. What she's talking about is actually what is going on right now as we speak. You can look at all of these different news articles. You can look at all of this information to substantiate that this is exactly what's going on.
States. This is a failure of Federal Reserve policy. It's a failure of the administration and of Congress. We have things that need to get done. We have a shortage of childcare. We have a shortage of elder care. We have shortages in the healthcare industry.
Yeah,
we have a need to rebuild our infrastructure.
I gotta agree, Torian. And honestly, I think that kind of needs to happen for people to kind of, start seeing exactly how serious we are. Torian says they won't be satisfied until we start throwing hands. And truth be told, I'm kind of at that point too. If you guys agree with Torian, give me a thumbs up. If y'all disagree, give me a thumbs down. Yeah, I agree. And I got to agree with Papa Nea Shelley. They're moving the goalpost. Absolutely. They've been moving the goalpost the entire migrant crisis, and also purposefully diverting information and purposely deflecting from particular points and not accurately addressing issues.
There's work for many people to do in the United States, and there are unnecessary restrictions, not freeing capital to go towards those things. All the while, the banks, which are responsible for allocating,
I agree,
new dollars to be.
I agree 100%. I agree 100%, bro. That's literally, when I be saying embrace villainy, that's literally what I mean. That's like, I don't know if y'all saw that community post on BLR 2 that I made this morning. I'll address that post on BLR 2 when I start my stream over there. But yeah, I agree. I agree 100%. They love to say how violent we are. Let's show them. Fact, everything that they say that we are and everything that we say that we should do, we should make sure that we give them a clear example of what it is that they're saying so that they can miss the old us. Or if they even survive. There's that. I mean, you know what I'm saying? You keep talking, you might not survive. You know what I'm saying?
Spent into the economy to invest into businesses, whether existing or people are starting new ones, instead of using capital in that way, in a way that grows the economy in the same way putting immigrant labor to work would. Instead, what those banks are doing is taking advantage of the Bank Term Funding Program. They're borrowing money from the Federal Reserve at a 4.88% interest rate, and then depositing that money into accounts at the Federal Reserve at a 5.4% interest rate. The Federal Reserve is currently paying banks to take money to the tune of $255 billion in the 2 weeks we just had in December. That's absurd.
So see, this is what I'm talking about the quantitative easing and the control of the financial system. This is one of the reasons why all of these areas of control have to be broken up. Do you see how they can quantitatively ease the money to make this money appear, make the money reappear, make certain amounts of money be worth more than others, change the economy? Do you guys see this? This is why this is so important. This is how you can be Kanye West and the system can de-billionaire you. And then the very people that de-billionaire you act like there's no system in play. And then they try to act like if there is a system in play, it's a system in play that's somehow affecting them negatively. When we all know that that's not true.
Banks in the United States should be investing in businesses. They should be loaning that money out so that our economy grows. And right now, every single person that's struggling with inflation is a victim of banks irresponsibly using their power. They've been tasked with money creation. They've been doing a bad job. Everyone hurts from that. All of the workers that are struggling to make ends meet are struggling because of that. And the migrants seeking to labor in the United States and start a life. And now, governors and mayors are overwhelmed with the amount of migrants they don't have jobs for.
Yeah, I think border security should be the first consideration, because at that point, it would be a lot easier, first of all, to process the people who are coming to the United States who right now are not being properly screened and somehow are being put on airplanes and other forms of transportation to move about the country on the expense of taxpayers.
Now, let me ask you guys this question. How many taxpayers have had a direct influence in how their tax dollars are spent in regards to the migrant crisis? Who has had a direct say in this to say, you know what, this is how I want my tax dollars to be spent? Who's had a direct say?
Despite the fact that we seemingly don't have much idea of who these people are, there have been multiple instances in the dozens of people on terror watch lists actually making their way across the southern border. And we have people not just coming from Mexico.
Now, again, I want to make sure that you guys heard this, because this is consistent with the first thing that we watched. She's talking about these people that are on terror watch lists. Now, here's my question for you guys. If people are coming to the United States, if they're undocumented, if we're not enforcing our laws, we utilize the current practices that we are utilizing. We don't vet these people and we release them back into the United States. How do you screen to make sure that you are not accepting people who are currently or formerly on a terror watch list? How do you do that? How do you screen for that? How do you make sure that that does not occur? And here's a question for you guys. are they effectively keeping Americans safe and making sure that this is not occurring? Or do you guys think that there's a unknown and unlimited amount of possibilities of this happening every time somebody crosses the border? Now, that right there is one of the main reasons why there's a border, to keep particular people like that. And when I say like that, I'm not talking about anybody's race or ethnicity. I'm talking about criminal background, right? To keep people of a criminal background out of the United States. But they're not looking at that. They're not able to look at it because they're just letting everybody that is undocumented in. And then once they get in, they're not vetting anybody. So my question to you guys is, how many potential deleters, potential people who attack and assault people sexually, people who attack and assault minors, how many of these people do you all think have been unleashed into the country as a result of these open border policies of Joe Biden's? Let me know.
To the United States who right now are not being properly screened and somehow are being put on airplanes and other forms of transportation to move about the country on the expense of taxpayers, despite the fact that we seemingly don't have much idea of who these people are. There have been multiple instances in the dozens of people on terror watch lists actually making their way across the southern border. And we have people not just coming from Mexico, Guatemala, Honduras, but people who actually fly into Central and South America, as well as the northern border that we share with Canada, in order to cross there because they believe it would be easier than trying to enter the country through legal means or through some other method. So border security to me is number one. There are obviously legal pathways already for people to be able to work in the United States, whether seasonally or on some kind of other visa program. Some of my coworkers do it from London. I work for The Spectator. We are fundamentally a British company, and they all get work permits to come work here. But trying to give people after the fact work permits after they've immigrated illegally only serves to further incentivize that behavior, as opposed to encouraging people to go through the legal process. I think there's an argument to be made, perhaps, that the legal process can be challenging sometimes and take too long. That's legitimate criticism. That is something that obviously would have to go through
now,
Congress
real
as
quick,
well.
ladies and gentlemen, shameless plug. If you're not subscribed to the undocumented Twitter account, the link for the undocumented Twitter account is in the description box. Take a moment, hit that link, make sure that you're subscribed there. Also, if you don't want to leave the live chat, the bots should put the link in the chat. Make sure you hit that link when the bots put that link in the chat. And also, shout out to everybody that's watching. We got 43 people watching. I appreciate each and every one of you guys. If everybody can take a moment, smash that like button. If you guys haven't hit that bell, make sure you guys take a moment and hit that bell. We are now 48 away from 500. So the countdown is beginning. Let's get it.
But I think there's always been this attempt at deal making between Republicans and Democrats, where Democrats say, well, we'll give you border security, but first you have to give everyone who's here amnesty and you have to reform the immigration system. And they've been hoodwinked because the Democrats don't want to do border security. So the idea that they wouldn't secure the border first, I think it's frankly ridiculous. And if you start giving work permits to tens of thousands of migrants, really, we've had millions come in over the past few years. What you're doing for the American worker is you're artificially deflating wages because these individuals.
There you go. So now, how do the Democrats get around these things, right, that are being discussed here and attempt to try and sell you this, is my question. And shout out to Brooklyn Queen for dropping the undocumented Twitter account. Everybody, take a moment. If you're not subscribed to the undocumented Twitter account, and subscribe, hit that link that Brooklyn Queen just put in. And while you're over there, retweet. Okay.
Tend to be more economically desperate. So they are willing to work for lower wages and for poorer working conditions, even if they are a part of the legal economy. So we also have to consider the ramifications of importing that many laborers into our economy would have on the American working and middle class.
Yeah, I think, keeping the federal minimum wage high is a good stopgap for that. Having the Federal Reserve, consistently have a population of people unemployed is really the policy that's kept wages low for so long, since the 70s, when we saw wages begin to stagnate. That's also when they adopted the non-accelerationary inflationary rate of unemployment. So they decided that at this magical figure that they don't have any real math or economics to back up, no data that shows this figure is absolutely what it should be. Jerome Powell has.
And so again, what she's saying right here, this again just further reiterates what I always say about the reasons why we need to calculate our own data. Calculation of our own data is imperative. All right. Shout out to my man Robb from Denver. Now, I got a question that's not a serious question for you guys, but it's a question that I'm going to ask you guys nonetheless. Do you guys remember that news anchor, the older white lady with blonde hair from New York, the New York news station, CBS News, and she's got like the deep Daria voice? You guys remember her? If you guys remember her, give me a thumbs up. If you guys don't remember her, give me a thumbs down. Now, the reason why I ask, right, is because you guys are about to get some of the best content, some of the best, most enjoyable content that you've ever seen. You're going to get to listen to her in her deep, dry voice talk to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez about the migrant crisis. Isn't everybody excited? You guys excited? I know you guys are excited. I know you guys are excited. Let's get it.
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez went from quietly tending bar to loudly challenging the establishment in Congress and on the national political stage. The Point starts right now. She's known as AOC to most of America, a congresswoman who is not afraid to ignore the party line. She's here to talk about the many big issues confronting Washington and the nation. And the biggest issue right now is immigration.
Now, let's start off here. Is immigration the biggest issue facing the nation? If you guys think that it is, give me a thumbs up. If you guys do not think that it is, then give me a thumbs down. I agree with her. I think that this is probably as of right now, currently, this is probably the biggest, most pressing issue. Probably the issue with the most urgency in the United States. Something that literally, for whatever the reason or for whatever the motivation, most of America is concerned with. Okay. Now, we saw when AOC was confronted by the Fox News anchor, AOC told the Fox News anchor that this wasn't in her district. So it's not something that she really was concerned about. Now, why am I bringing that up? I'm bringing that up because this doesn't make any sense. It's not in her district and she's not concerned about it. Yet, she decided to sit down and do a 21-minute interview about something that is not in her district that she's not concerned about. Why do you guys think that that is? Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. And shout out to everybody who just followed Undocumented on Twitter. I appreciate you guys.
It's nobody's happy. Everybody's unhappy. Everybody's worried. What should President Biden be doing?
You know, I think it's not just about President Biden, but it's also about Congress. You know, our government, and our governance. It's the president, it's the Senate, and it's the House. First thing that we need to do, I think, is actually be able to provide the resources so that our system, as it's currently designed, can function. Right now, because of a Republican-controlled House and so much of what's been going on, some of these basic systems.
We got a Democrat president. Why is the government not working together? Let me ask you guys a question. Is it the Democrats and the Republicans both responsibility to be able to civilly work together for the benefit of the American people? So it doesn't matter with them blaming each other. That's not an excuse. If they can't come together and make bipartisan policy to fix the imminent problems that could destroy the United States, then that's a failure on both of their parts. And you don't get to point fingers at each other. You get fingers pointed at both of you for being incompetent. And right now, the Democrats and the Republicans, not just right now, shit, as long as I can remember, are showing themselves as incompetent. You know what I'm saying?
are not even being processed.
Like what?
We don't have our judges to process these visa applications. We don't have our actual paperwork processing so that people can get work permits, do the things that they need to do to get on their feet and not have to.
Now, we've investigated the European migrant crisis, and one of the things that we found from the European migrant crisis is that the massive distribution of work permits is not an end-all be-all solution to dealing with this issue. So why they keep acting as if work permits are what's gonna fix everything is beyond me, because the work permits are not gonna fix everything. The work permits may not fix anything. And as they talked about on the Hill, one thing that the work permits could influence is the work permits could possibly drive down the lower end of the wages for American workers, which is not good. That's going to cause a problem with the economy.
Rely on our systems. Those haven't been funded. So we needed that. But then most importantly, we actually need to actually provide a true path to citizenship in this country and return to a time which.
So again, would you guys agree that examining a path to citizenship is a very different and separate issue from closing or regulating the border? Those are two very different things. What I want you guys to pay attention to is that all Democrats respond to this line of questioning with path to citizenship talk. Path to citizenship talk does not regulate the very two simple variables that will calm this migrant crisis down, which tells you that the Democrats do not want to deal with the migrant crisis. These are undeniable, undebunkable facts. There is literally nobody that can come in right now and knock down the logic. They cannot knock it down. This is mathematical, and it's impossible for any objective-based individual to come in and say, Rob, what you're saying about this situation is inaccurate and incorrect. First and foremost, pathway to citizenship is very different than border regulation and border closing. Second of all, we isolated two variables: migrant encounters and illegal border crossings that caused directly responsible for the cause of the surge in the migrant crisis. Those are the two things that need to be dealt with. My question is, how does pathway to citizenship deal with decreasing border encounters and illegal border crossings? How does that deal with those two things? It doesn't. Which means that if their suggestion does not deal with those two things, then their suggestion is nonsense. If you guys agree with that, give me a thumbs up. If you guys disagree, give me a thumbs down.
Because we weren't always like this. Return to a time where path to citizenship is accessible so that people can actually work quickly, get on their feet, find a job, and support their family.
But some people who have already come here and have gone through the long path of citizenship are resentful of efforts to make it quicker for newer arrivals. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, I think it's a normal process. Like we see this with student loans too. Some people say, I paid my student loans. Why should someone else get forgiveness? But I don't think that because things were disorderly in the past, that should be a reason why we shouldn't fix them moving forward.
But would you shorten the path to citizenship?
I think we need to clarify it. We need to make it easier. We have millions of undocumented people in this country. A lot of people who, by the way, started on a legal pathway and then became undocumented because our system is so difficult to navigate. I think it's important to make it easier, especially that first rung of just being able to get a work permit so that you can legally be employed.
So why do you think the president has been so reticent to provide aid to New York City, which has taken a huge number of the migrants who have come here?
Yeah, I think in the conversation about immigration in this country, it gets so dominated by the border. The
border is a huge part of it, and it doesn't get dominated by the border. If the conversation was dominated by the border, then the border would be being addressed right now. There's only one state that's actually directly addressing the border. So how does the border overwhelm the conversation? If you ask me, work permits and access to jobs dominates the conversation. If the border dominated the conversation, then there would be at least some degree, there would be some remnants of the border being addressed. But there is no remnants of the border being addressed. There's no evidence that the border has been dealt with at all. None. What's come out of this quote unquote conversation of the border dominating the conversation? What's come out of it?
And so there's so much momentum to trying to provide tons of money, sometimes more money than they can even spend in a given fiscal year at the border. And the idea of redirecting those resources to the people and the communities that are actually absorbing these migrant populations is more new. But it is happening. You know, we've secured over $140 million to contribute to New York City's response.
But that's
We
like a
need
drop in
more.
the bucket of what Mayor Adams says he needs to spend.
Right. We definitely need more. I also think that we need to really open the books on New York City's fiscal operation and what we're spending and how we're spending it in terms of not just migrant response, but in general. But, you know, so I think there are things we can do better as a city. And I absolutely believe that more resources, we've been fighting, we've been getting more resources, but definitely more to New York City from the federal government.
So you're questioning the way the mayor has spent money? You think he's not spent it wisely?
Well, I think when we talk about billions of dollars and these figures that the mayor is using.
12 billion.
Right. These figures that the mayor is citing and using, I think we need to show our work for that, especially as elected representatives. Our job is to go get that money. And so we've been.
As elected representatives, it's your job to do what the people that elected you tell you to do, first and foremost. Second of all, she mentioned jobs, right? And they keep mentioning jobs. Now, how many times have we looked at migrant shelters, and right there on the news, the migrant shelters have said that people have motorcycles and mopeds in front of the migrant shelters to get them back and forth from their jobs, which are quote unquote usually food delivery jobs. If you've ever heard them say that before, give me a thumbs up. If this is something new and I'm making this up and you've never heard them say this before, then give me a thumbs down. Now, why am I asking about this? I'm asking this because my question is, why are we talking about jobs if the reason why they have these mopeds and motorcycles that they're supposed to have licenses for, which we got to ask the question, how do they have licenses for them if they're not documented? They're using those vehicles, means of transportations, for these quote unquote jobs that they have, which again, they already have jobs. Most of them are illegally working. So what other jobs are these that we're talking about here? Because clearly we're talking about something else. Now, most content that you watch in regards to the observation of a migrant crisis will point out the fact that there are motorized bicycles or motorcycles in front of the migrant shelters, and that those migrant shelter motorcycles and bikes are being used for food delivery or delivery jobs, which again makes you ask the question, well, then that seems like many of those people have jobs. So then what are they talking about here? And shout out to Rob from Denver. Rob from Denver says New York, Chicago, and Denver all allow undocumented to get driver's license. Now, here's my question. How do they read the street signs? How do they read the street names? How can they pass a driver's license test? Think about that. They can read the street signs. They can read the caution signs. They can read the interstate signs, but when asked questions, they can't speak English. Somebody make that make sense.
Been going out to get that money, but we need to show our work too when we go to the federal government and say, this is how this money's being used, this is where it's going to, this is what justifies that figure.
So you want a fiscal accounting from Mayor Adams as to where the money's going and to see if it could be spent more efficiently.
I think, I think there's that. I think also when we're talking about this current environment of budget cuts, we need to be really certain that this.
Yeah, absolutely. Big facts, Cameron. That's a great question. Cameron says, what happens when they hit your car? Here's my question. Is there anybody who knows anything about how auto insurance companies are handling undocumented drivers? That's a great question. If you know how insurance companies are handling undocumented drivers, give me a thumbs up. If you guys do not know how that's being handled, then give me a thumbs down. I don't see any articles at all about auto insurance for undocumented immigrants. Which now the thing is that those would be considered high-risk drivers, right? Shout out to John Guillory. What's good with it, bro? And that's a big fact. KO Kid Fit said, how many of them even drove back in their homeland in the first place? They probably was some getaway drivers for some type of cartel or something like that. You know what I'm saying? Sheesh. Now, now this is interesting, right? I want to show you guys this, and then we'll get back to this. The reason why I couldn't find anything about auto insurance. So how can you drive? Why are we paying for auto insurance, those high rates, if they're allowed to drive without auto insurance? Now look at this right here. This is the Detroit Free Press. Refugees, immigrants can get driver's license help at Dearborn Resource Fair. Now, this is from November 4th of 2023. All right, so this was back in November. Refugees and immigrants who need help obtaining a driver's license, buying a car, and navigating in auto insurance can attend a free resource fair on Wednesday. The event, organized by the Southwest Michigan Refugee Collaborative and Economic Development Organization Global Detroit, is intended to help new arrivals access transportation. A lack of affordable and accessible transportation is one of the main barriers people encounter when they arrive, especially as they seek jobs and services, according to the groups. How are they accessing affordable insurance? How are they accessing affordable insurance? Somebody make it make sense. The fair will offer 3 workshops walking people through how to get a driver's license by Michigan Department of State, how to purchase a vehicle by First Merchants Bank, and understanding auto insurance options by the Michigan Department of Insurance and Financial Services. Attendees can also get information about organizations, agencies, and businesses that provide public and private transportation services and programs. Now, here goes my question. Them getting auto insurance it clearly, right? It clearly is not a problem, because if it was a problem, this would be all over the news. There would be all type of sympathy articles to try to get everybody to feel bad about this. Shout out to KO Kid Fit. He said the general. He said the general. Idaho bill to help undocumented drivers just cleared a major hurdle. The Senate is next. An undocumented driver. That means a driver without a license. Make it make sense. You know the general will get you together. You could have ran your car into 7 buildings and the general will get you together with liability for only $5 a month. Shout out to the general. You know what I'm saying? You got like 13 DUIs on your driver's license. They get you a what is that, a SR22 bond and liability insurance for $20 a month. The general be making it happen. The general make it happen. I don't know how they be making it happen, but the general make it happen though. You know what I'm saying? If you get full coverage, the general will have you with a mediocre driver's record with full insurance for under $50. You need full coverage. You done got into like 17 accidents this year. Bet we got you for $35 a month. Like, how do y'all do that? That's crazy, man. General Wild, man. You know what I'm saying? I don't know how that's not I don't know how that's not like I don't know how they haven't just completely taken over the insurance market. Yeah, so look, a new Senate bill would allow undocumented immigrants restricted driver's license and vehicle insurance, helping them avoid criminal charges for what immigrants' rights advocates say is a necessity in Idaho. Some people would say that smoking weed is a necessity, but before they legalized marijuana, a lot of them people end up going to jail and they didn't get nothing like this. So I want y'all to pay attention to how they're bending these rules. Like they're literally bending the rules. You're breaking the freaking law. If you can't drive, you can't drive. When I was 15 years old, I wanted to drive. Guess what? I couldn't. And at 15, I had a state ID. I was documented, bro.
This is necessary, and we need to really show our work with that. And so, I know the city controller has been doing a lot of oversight work, and the controller's numbers sometimes are different from the mayor's numbers. And I think that's an important discrepancy for us to reconcile.
Well, the kinds of cuts that the mayor has called for that are most upsetting people are the cuts to police officers. Are you afraid that this could compromise public safety in New York City?
Well, I think also that it's those cuts, also the cuts to schools, libraries, parks. These, the moment we start talking about budget cuts, I think we need to take that very seriously, because any extra dollar above what is necessary to be cut.
Do you notice how she didn't answer the question? How many questions has Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez answered in this interview? What question has she answered so far? Has she answered any question? She just didn't answer the question. I want y'all to put Rotten Tomatoes in the comment section every time she dodges a question.
To police officers, are you afraid that this could compromise public safety in New York City?
Well,
now this question that she just asked,
it's those cuts.
The question that the news anchor just asked, that was a yes or no question. Yes or no question. Yes or no question. Now let's listen to what Skinny from the Block says, or Skinny from the Bronx says.
Mayor Adams, as to where the money's going and to see if it could be spent more efficiently.
I think, I think there's that. I think also when we're talking about this current environment of budget cuts, we need to be really certain that this is.
Hey, that's facts. That's big facts, John. Vehicle homicide, the general, like, don't worry, we got you. You know what I'm saying? It's going to be $75 a month. This is one of our higher plans because you're high risk. You like, what?
necessary, and we need to really show our work with that. And so, I know the city controller has been doing a lot of oversight work, and the controller's numbers sometimes are different than the mayor's numbers. And I think that's an important discrepancy for us to reconcile.
Well, the kinds of cuts that the mayor has called for that are most upsetting people are the cuts to police officers. Are you afraid that this could compromise public safety in New York City?
Again, are you afraid that this could compromise public safety in New York City? Is this a yes or no question? If this is a yes or no question, give me a thumbs up. If it's not a yes or no question, give me a thumbs down. And also, real quick, shout out to everybody that's watching. We got 43 people watching and we got 49 likes. If everybody can bang on that like button and get us to 60, that'd be great.
Well, I think also it's those cuts, also the cuts to schools, libraries, parks. These, the moment we start talking about budget cuts, I think we need to take that very seriously, because any extra dollar above what is necessary to be cut is something that's not going to investing in our city. And so that's why I think it's important for us to assess these numbers when it comes to public safety. At the same time, we also have record numbers. We've had budget increases when it comes to the police department. And so, there's a balance there. I do think that some of the areas that are seeing some of the most extreme cuts, parks, schools, libraries, we really need to address why that's justified and look at the numbers behind.
Do you think that there was a political consideration that the mayor made cuts that would get people most upset in order to get more money from Washington?
I can't speak to the mayor's calculus and what motivates what. I do think that there are multiple ways to balance a budget. One can be in budget cuts, and the other can be in figuring out how we raise revenues. We have enormous amounts of wealthy people in New York City, and the fact that these cuts were considered, but revenue raising for the wealthiest people did not seem to be considered.
Man, it's amazing how these people just literally do not have, there's no requirements of answering a question. That's just crazy. Shout out to Carla. What's good with it, Carla? It's just crazy to me. You need to answer the question, AOC. This is not that difficult. Like, nobody's asking you anything unreasonable. This is ridiculous. She gonna be babbling like this the entire, straight up babbling, straight up Tower of Babel. You know what I'm saying? She gonna be babbling just like this come election season. She about to have a lot of viral moments, man. They kind of been off her back. Soon as she starts opening up her mouth again, man, they're gonna be all over it.
I think we really need to make an assessment about that. And because working people are hurting right now, and to cut the resources that everyday people already have, I don't think is the right direction if there's any way to avoid it.
So you're talking about tax cuts for the 1%?
Yeah, I mean, we have an enormous, taxes on the 1%. We have a housing crisis in the city. Huge areas of Manhattan are essentially empty because people are having second, third, fourth homes that are not being occupied, not contributing to the city's economy. Meanwhile, everyday people can't find a place to live because they can't find an affordable place to live. And so I think it's important for us to figure out,
in New York City, you got the politicians literally asking people to open up their houses to house migrants. Ain't no way. Ain't no way. How many of you all would open up your house to house migrants? If you would do that, give me a thumbs up. If you would not, then give me a thumbs down. They literally ask people to do that. Ain't nobody doing that. That's not safe, for one. These people are undocumented. Just because you all want to let them into the country and let them in not vetted, we supposed to let them have a slumber party at our house unvetted? Yeah, I don't think so, man. I don't think so. I don't think that's happening.
How do we move the city in the direction of making it more livable for the people who work here and live here?
So you're really talking about like the targeted real estate tax hikes for like people who live like a billionaire's row and those expensive apartments, so that you wouldn't increase real estate taxes on everybody, just on those people who have the very expensive homes.
Right. And that's just one avenue, right? That's just one avenue to look at. There are plenty of other ways to, explore how we find that solution. But the fact
now, let me ask you guys this. How have any of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, how have any of her suggestions or any of her answers to any of these questions addressed the southern border or addressed the influx of illegal migrants and how they plan to slow that down. If you ask me, the very first thing they need to do is slow down or bring to a complete stop illegal migration, illegal immigration. It's the first thing that needs to be done. Once that gets done, then it may be possible to explore minimum assimilation policy for people who entered based on asylum, legitimate asylum, and who use the legal channels. People who use the legal channels should be prioritized not over American citizens, but they should be prioritized over people who used illegal channels to get to the United States. If you ask me, not only are they prioritizing incorrectly, they're dealing with this situation the entirely wrong way. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, based on this interview, in my opinion, clearly does not see a need to even address the border. As a matter of fact, she feels that the border gets addressed too much. She said it earlier.
That the immediate go-to, and that the first thing on the chopping block is kids' schools and our parks and the basic things that go to our functioning, which all of those things go to public safety, right? Kids being able to have a proper education, summer youth employment programs so that teenagers aren't just hanging out during the summertime. You know, all of these things contribute to a safer city. And it's not just, you know, this is not just a discussion about police cuts, but cuts to our parks, cuts to our schools, all of that contributes or doesn't to a safe environment in our city.
Do you think that the immigration issue is going to cost President Biden his reelection?
I think that the immigration issue is certainly important.
Again, a yes or no question. Yes or no question. Now, I'm going to ask you guys this question that she asked Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Do you all feel that there's a chance that the immigration issue could cause Joe Biden his presidency? Let me know what y'all think. In fact, shout out to the Rotten Tomatoes. Again, didn't answer a question. Keep throwing them Rotten Tomatoes in every time this clown dodges a question.
And summer youth employment programs so that teenagers aren't just hanging out during the summertime. You know, all of these things contribute to...
Shout out to Komet. Komet says she can suck an egg. Yeah, she could probably suck the yolk right out of it. You know what I'm saying? Like a pro.
A safer city. And it's not just, you know, this is not just a discussion about police cuts, but cuts to our parks, cuts to our schools, all of that contributes or doesn't to a safe environment in our city.
Do you think that the immigration issue is going to cost President Biden his reelection?
I think that the immigration issue is certainly important. But I think as well that when it comes to the everyday average person, when I wake up in the morning, when my cousins, when my neighbors wake up in the morning, we think about how are we going to get to work, put food on the table, pay our rent, and maybe see a doctor, go on vacation. Or, you know, save up if you can, if you're lucky enough. And so I think that that's the most important issue.
If you're lucky enough to save. If you're lucky enough, because savings requires luck. I think it's safe to say that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is not in reality. She's also not even on the same planet as we are.
Of course, there are many others, immigration, climate, you know, so many others. But I think that the president has worked very hard, has had one of the most productive legislative presidencies in modern history, passed the Inflation Reduction Act. Inflation, while it's still a problem, it is going down. The rate is going down. And we have record job levels that we've never had. And so it's not to say everything is roses, but it's to say that we're making real progress here. And that, you know, immigration is
real progress from what? the United States is supposed to be the most solid, the most strong, and the most stable country in the world. So now when she says we're making progress, again, you got to ask the question, you're making progress from what? From what? The consumer price index literally just months ago was at 40-year highs. What that means is that the economy was shrinking at a damn near exponential rate. In addition to the economy shrinking at a damn near exponential rate, gas prices were up. Interest rates continue to raise because the economy has been completely mismanaged. What is she talking about? Somebody make it make sense. How many people would be happy to have her as their congresswoman? Let me know what y'all think.
It's absolutely something for us to address. The way we address it, in my view, is with a Democratic Congress and presidency that actually addresses a path to citizenship.
Some Democrats don't think he's the best person to run at the top of the ticket. How do you feel?
I mean, I think at this juncture, the filing deadlines for states have passed. I think it's completely healthy to have a conversation about candidates, et cetera. That
Here
conversation.
we go. More question dodging.
Roses, but it's to say that we're making real progress.
AOC be eyeball bucking. Man, she be eyeball bucking like crazy. She don't never get called out for eyeball bucking, man. But she be bucking her eyes like that. That's just crazy.
Here and that, you know, immigration is absolutely something for us to address. The way we address it, in my view, is with a
Look at them eyes right there. I think I'm finna make a AOC eyeball bucking collage because she got some crazy eyeball demonic looking pictures.
Democratic Congress and presidency that actually addresses a path to citizenship.
Some Democrats don't think he's the best person to run at the top of the ticket. How do you feel?
I mean, I think at this juncture, the filing deadlines for states have passed. I think it's completely healthy to have a conversation about candidates, et cetera. That conversation has happened. The time for that.
Do you feel comfortable with Joe Biden being the person on the ticket? Nobody asked you what you felt comfortable with. Do you feel comfortable with your face being shaped like that? Sheesh.
Conversation has happened. And listen, if you think you can do a better job, you put your hat in the ring. And right now, we have the candidates that we have, and President Biden.
Now, the guy that thinks that he can do a better job than Biden, they're not letting him put his hat in the ring. They're trying to get him taken off of the ballot in every state that he's in so that Biden has an easier time. So again, just pay close attention to the hypocrisy of AOC.
Biden is not only our candidate, but his presidency and his first term have been legislatively productive. And there are absolutely things that people can take issue with. It's normal to.
Okay.
But, you know, to say that, you know, I don't think we should give short shrift to what has actually been accomplished.
All right, well, it's time for a break.
Okay, well, AOC, what's been accomplished? What has actually been accomplished besides 40-year high inflation, 40-year high gas prices, even more instability with our relationships with Russia and China, inflation, interest rates, couple Black massacres have occurred. We had the Tops in Buffalo shooting. We had the Dollar General shooting in Florida. What's been produced from the Biden administration?
More from Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. We're back with the outspoken Congresswoman who represents Queens and the Bronx. So Israel has been a very hot button topic. I wonder how you feel about our aid package and whether the considerations, the worries that you have mean that we might want to cut back our aid package to Israel.
I think so. And I know there's an enormous amount of that. I want to acknowledge that this is such an active and sensitive conversation in the world, in the country.
Oh, we have to acknowledge that it's such an active and sensitive conversation when this same bitch right here can literally just shit on any type of topic involving black people. But you know, she just wants to make sure that she pats it really nicely when she's talking about the Middle East. Now, why does she want to pat it really nicely? She wants to pat it really nicely because she knows that them folks gonna run a train on her if she don't talk about the Middle East the way that they want her to. And she don't want that. Now we got to have this. We got to put tools into place and have strategies where we can have punishments, consequences, and strike fear in people's hearts in the same way if we expect people to tap dance around us or talk to us with the kind of respect that we want. They're not going to talk about our issues in a sensitive way or in an appropriate way just because they talk about them folks' issues in an appropriate way. Them folks have a long history of shaming. Them folks have a long history of extracting personal information and hiding it and holding it over people's heads. They have a long history of utilizing infrastructure to attempt to create financial genocide. We have to be able to do those same nefarious things. So what we should do, in my opinion, all of our efforts, as far as political, business, whatever, should all be focused in creating formidable means of leaving nasty impressions on people when they cross us. Billion-dollar bad tastes in people's mouths. Just the expectations and going back and forth and rebutting on social media, it's not good enough. It's not good enough. It's a waste of time if all we have is news and media with no way to be able to act on the analysis that we make. We need to start creating means to go from analyzing to prototype to production. Shout out to DSB. What's good with it? If you guys agree, give me a thumbs up. If you guys disagree, give me a thumbs down.
Especially in our city. But I think that what we are seeing happen with so many innocent people being killed in Gaza, and of course, the horrific bloodshed that happened on October 7th as well. I think a major concern that we have right now is the lack of a plan from Netanyahu's government, the excessive and indiscriminate violence that we are seeing.
So you say cut the aid to force him to do something?
I think that when we talk about additional military assistance, this is not just about what Israel's doing. This is really a conversation about us and the United States. And I don't believe that the United States should supplement military assistance in places of grave human rights violations. That's not just my belief. That's the current law on the books. And that is what is happening. And it is currently the law that we cannot provide military aid in those environments. And so I think what is in adherence with the law is to currently
now, she's talking about making sure that they follow the law in regards to dealing with the Middle East, but she's talking about superseding the law when it comes to dealing with the border. And I got to agree with Lloyd Sky 9. If you guys agree with Lloyd Sky 9, give me a thumbs up. Why are we focused on Israel? We need to focus on domestic affairs. Facts. Domestic affairs should always come first. They should always be first priority, and it should never even be a question. of looking outside of the United States to spend taxpayer money before they deal with the issues that taxpayers have here. We should always get served first with our own money, with our own votes, with our own investment. That's insane. If you invested in a company and the board of directors of that company literally decided to serve everybody else except for the shareholders, the shareholders are going to dump that stock and walk away. Maybe that's what people need to start doing here in the United States to get them to understand, since they act like they don't. You know what I'm saying? Maybe that's what we need to start doing here in the United States to get them to understand. And if they don't understand, and we just, keep the pressure on until they tank. It don't matter.
Add conditionality, and also, if Netanyahu's government is not going to slow down, we cannot be complicit in that.
So you've called for a ceasefire. You've also said that you support the creation of a Palestinian state, which has put you in the crosshairs of a number of Jewish groups who have vowed to spend millions and millions of dollars to defeat members of the so-called squad. I wonder how you feel about that, because you're definitely in their crosshairs.
Yeah, I'm also proud
Now,
to have the support of...
This is interesting, right? And this plays into a whole nother issue that goes more into geopolitics and not so much the migrant crisis or undocumented bros. But I want you guys to pay attention to what they just said. How many of y'all caught that? Why are they okay? Now, despite the fact that I'm not a fan of the squad, right? I'm also not a fan of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Why are interest groups based from other countries paying to try to get our politicians out of office? Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez should get beat because the voters want her out, not because some outside entity wants her out. Let me ask you guys a question. If outside entities are attempting to influence American politics, is that political interference? If that's political interference, give me a thumbs up. If it's not political interference, then give me a thumbs down. I'm going to let you guys listen to this again. And I want you guys to pay very close attention. And when you hear it, I want to know if what they're talking about is political interference. Listen.
When we talk about additional military assistance, this is not just about what Israel's doing. This is really a conversation about us and the United States. And I don't believe that the United States should supplement military assistance in places of grave human rights violations. That's not just my belief. That's the current law on the books. And that is what is happening. And it is currently the law that we cannot provide military aid in those environments. And so I think what is in adherence with the law is to currently add conditionality, and also, if Netanyahu's government is not going to slow down, we cannot be complicit in that.
So you've called for a ceasefire.
Listen to this now. You've called for a ceasefire.
You've also said that you support the creation of a Palestinian state, which is...
It's ironic that they said the quote-unquote creation of the Palestinian state, because the Palestinian state already exists, but that's neither here nor there.
Put you in the crosshairs of a number of Jewish groups.
Put you in the crosshairs of a number of J groups.
For a ceasefire. You've also said that you support the creation of a Palestinian state, which has put you in the crosshairs of a number of Jewish groups who have vowed to spend millions and millions of dollars to defeat members of the so-called squad.
Why are those groups spending millions to intervene in our politics? Now, again, AOC ain't my favorite, right? But I believe that we should beat AOC. I don't believe that any outside entity should be buying and paying for politicians. Why am I saying that? because the same group of people that's trying to pay money to get AOC and Rashida Tlaib and all them to get them out, that group of people also has the Congressional Black Caucus on their payroll. They also got Nikki Haley on their payroll. They also got Ron DeSantis on their payroll. They done dropped off a little bit of change in Trump's pockets. I think you might be right. But I think they might call you something if you say that too loud. You know what I'm saying? Now, what the irony of what's going on here is that the reason why groups like that group that she's asking AOC about have the ability to come to the United States and do what they did and what they're doing is because of open borders. If those people were in their country, they wouldn't be able to be doing what they're doing to AOC and the squad. But AOC and the squad literally advocate for open border policies and minimal requirement immigration that allows anybody to come in and fundamentally change the politics of the United States, like what's going on with her that she's being targeted by. So make it make sense. You know, I was thinking about this the other day, and once I get a chance and we be able to go live on the LGTV channel, we're going to talk about this too. Nah, we'll wait. We're going to save that. We're going to say that. So now you guys got to make sure that you tune in.
I wonder how you feel about that because you're definitely in their crosshairs.
Shout out to Jesse. What's good with it, bro?
I'm also proud to have the support of
Happy birthday
Jewish
to you.
organizations that
Make
believe
sure y'all
in
throw
human
some
rights for all
champagne
people and
bottles and
understand
some
that the
cake
path
in the chat
to a
for
lasting
Jesse.
peace is in dignity for both Palestinian and Israeli families, but particularly in ending the injustices that Palestinians face. Now, when it comes to how I feel about
Now, you know what's interesting? AOC's not confused about who Palestinians are. She's not saying, well, they're Middle Eastern and who really is a Palestinian? I mean, there's Houthis over there. There's Shiites over there. There's people from Jordan over there. There's people from Yemen over there. There's people from Saudi Arabia, Qatar over there. I mean, and those people are Muslim. Some of those people are, Asian. Some of those people are Caucasian. Some of those people are black. I mean, like, who are the Palestinians? Nobody, she didn't say that. Did you notice that? So the way that AOC rides for the Palestinians, just pay very close attention. Oh, she's able to ride for people that she wants to. Shout out to Leonard. What's good with it, bro? So when she does all of that babbling and sidestepping when it comes to talking about stuff for black people, just understand that she's doing that nonsense because not only is she anti-black, she's not advocating. It's not because she doesn't know any better. It's not because she's ignorant. It's not because, she just doesn't understand. It's not any of that. It's because she doesn't want to. She does not want to. So when she starts babbling, acting like she's confused about black people, right? Because black people are American, and she claims, right? She claims that she's got some black ancestry, which she probably does, but she don't know anything about it, though. And she never has identified as a black woman, so you know what I'm saying? There's that, right? How do you know more about people overseas than you do about the people here in the United States that you claim to have some connection to, that actually laid the foundation for you and the majority of your family and part of your ancestry to even come over here. You don't know anything about your own history, but you down with the Palestinians? Make it make sense. Make it make sense.
This challenge. It's no secret that standing up to established powers puts a target on your back, and that's a big reason why people don't do it.
But see, they're saying that you're fomenting anti-Semitism. Do you accept that, reject that? How do you feel?
I reject it wholeheartedly because I believe that the idea that standing up for human rights is anti-Semitic is an appalling allegation. And in fact, some of the people that are some of the most righteous human rights supporters that I know are Jewish brothers and sisters and neighbors. And so the idea that...
So yeah, so again, now she's babbling and she's really playing politics. She's about as long-winded as she is long-faced. You know what I'm saying? You guys agree with that or y'all disagree? Let me know what y'all think in the comment section. So when it comes to New York City, close the curtain, close the gate. They are full to capacity, ladies and gentlemen. Now, my question that I'd like everybody to answer in the comment section, shout out to the replay gang, is who's next? Who's next to be at full capacity? Let me know what you guys think. Also, we got a stream coming up. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe that stream is coming up at noon on BLR1. I'm sorry, on BLR2. So if you're not subscribed to BLR2, take a moment, subscribe to BLR2. If you're not subscribed to the Undocumented Twitter account, make sure you guys subscribe to the Undocumented Twitter account. If you're not subscribed to me on Rumble, make sure you guys subscribe on Rumble. And if you're not part of the Discord, make sure you guys take a moment and join the Discord. I appreciate each and every one of you all. Got more content for you guys today. So make sure you got all the alerts hit. And as always, ladies and gentlemen,